everything you need to know about the Cars Trilogy. Speed cap! Yeah, ka-chow. Meet the race car Lightning McQueen. He's a very overconfident racer, and he's currently participating in the Dynoco 400 to win the Piston Cup. Now, he thinks he's so great that he doesn't need to even stop in the pit stop. But unfortunately, that leads him to overwork himself and blow out his back tires. So he loses the lead and ties with two other racers, the King and Chick Hicks. This means they're going to have to race again in a week in California to determine the true winner of the Piston Cup. Now, Lightning McQueen boards his vehicle carrier, Mac, to travel across the country. But unfortunately, Lightning McQueen falls asleep and falls off of Mac on the highway. He freaks out and ends up in Radiator Springs. And upon arrival, he ends up destroying their road. And the local judge, Doc Hudson, forces Lightning McQueen to fix the road before he can leave. Now, Lightning really wants to get to his race, so he does a really bad job of fixing the road, which angers Doc Hudson. And Doc Hudson then challenges Lightning McQueen to a race, where if Lightning wins, he can just leave Radiator Springs, but if Lightning loses, he has to stay and redo the road. Now, Lightning thinks he can easily beat this old car, so he takes that bet. But unfortunately for him, he's never raced off-road before, and he loses to Doc Hudson. That's when he finds out that Doc Hudson is actually the old race car, the Hudson Hornet. And because of this, Lightning McQueen gets Doc Hudson to train him. It's at this time that Lightning starts to fall in love with Radiator Springs. Here he meets his new best friend Mater, he falls in love with a car named Sally, and he makes a bunch of other new friends. But they're not really important. The only one you need to know about is Guido. Guido. Now eventually the media catches up to Lightning at Radiator Springs, forcing him to leave and go to the race. And Lightning's not doing too well in the race. He's behind Chick Hicks and the King. But then his friends from Radiator Springs show up and help him in the pit crew. Meanwhile, Chick Hicks decides to crash into the King, forcing him off the track. Now, Lightning is about to win the race and cross the finish line, but he sees the King, and it reminds him of how Doc Hudson's career ended. So he decides to help out. Unfortunately, this means that Chick Hicks wins the race. And so Lightning McQueen ends up pushing the King across the finish line, helping him to complete the race. And even though he didn't end up winning the Piston Cup, everybody applauds Lightning McQueen for his good sportsmanship. That's Cars 1! Now, Cars 2 starts with Secret Agent Finn McMissile spying on the villain, Zundap, who has developed a EMP laser disguised as a TV camera. Meanwhile, the Italian race car Francesco challenges Lightning McQueen to race him in the World Grand Prix, and Lightning accepts, bringing Mater along. Now, the Grand Prix was started by this oil businessman, Axelrod, who has developed this new green energy fuel, All-in-All. But Mater discovers that when All-in-All is hit by the EMP laser, it explodes. So Finn McMissile and his associate Holly recruit Mater to stop Zundap. Now, in terms of the races, Francesco wins the first race of the Grand Prix, but Lightning McQueen wins the second, meaning they're all tied up going into the final race. And during these races, Zundap has been using his TV camera EMP laser to explode other race cars. In the final race, Zundap tries to use the EMP laser on Lightning McQueen, but it doesn't work. And he also captures Mater, Finn McMissile, and Holly. But they escape, team up with Lightning and some other friends from Radiator Springs to stop Zundap. Then Mater reveals that Axelrod was actually the mastermind behind everything. He developed All-in-All to be explodable when exposed to EMP lasers, and hired Zundap to create this TV camera laser and explode cars with the fuel in it, so that it would scare the world from using renewable energy fuel, and they would be forced to buy more oil from him. That's Cars 2! Now we start Cars 3 with an older Lightning McQueen, who has now won 5 Piston Cups. Oh baby, he's the GOAT. Unfortunately for him though, there's these new, more technologically advanced and faster cars like Jackson Storm. And in one race, Lightning McQueen pushes himself so far trying to catch up with Jackson that he ends up flipping over and crashing, and he's not able to race for months. Eventually, he gets himself back into shape, and his boss, Sterling, forces him to go train under this new trainer, Cruz Ramirez, at a high-tech facility for the upcoming race, the Florida 500. But Lightning McQueen is an old-school car. He doesn't like this high-tech stuff. So him and Cruz leave to go train at Doc Hudson's old stomping grounds, the Thunder Hollow Speedway. But they discover that it's been turned into a car derby, and they accidentally enter themselves in this car derby. And Cruz Ramirez wins, and she reveals to Lightning that she's always wanted to be a racer, but she just never had the confidence for it. Now, Lightning meets Doc Hudson's old pit crew, and they give him some tips and tricks to overcome his speed disadvantage and try and beat these new race cars. So he heads to the Florida 500, and he's doing pretty well. He's beating the other cars. But then he hears over the radio Sterling forcing Cruz to leave and go back to the training facility, and he's not having that. So he has Cruz replace him in the second part of the race, and she is beating the other race cars too. And that's when Jackson Storm tries to cheat and win by shoving her up against the wall. But Cruz uses one of Doc Hudson's old tricks and flips over him to win the race. The movie ends with Lightning McQueen going back to Radiator Springs, and he decides to become the coach of Cruz Ramirez. That's Cars 3!